Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sideline Stories. I am your host, Chase McTaggart, and today we have a very special guest, the Vice President of Staffing and Operations Development at the Tri-City Chili Peppers, Robert Perez. Hello and welcome, Robert.
Thank you for having me, Chase. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here today.
Happy to have you. So I did want to kind of jump right into the early beginnings of your career and how you got started and your transition into sports.
So
You spent over a decade in higher education and residential life before entering sports. What did those early leadership and people management roles teach you that you still use today in baseball operations?
Well, within my roles within higher education, I got to actually do a great deal of programming and entertainment in order to keep the students entertained while they're living on campus. And so I got to look at how I could use that to translate into entertaining fans when they're in the stadium. For the Chili Peppers, we heavily focus on the entertainment experience that we offer to our fans. And so this came in handy with transitioning into the sports industry as well. And also, being able to supervise and manage a large staff was something that I accomplished within higher education. And so, as I transitioned into sports, that has helped me learn how to oversee and manage a larger staff within the sports industry. I find it really is all about developing that relationship with the staff members that I have, figuring out how I can help them accomplish the responsibilities of their positions and continue to help them grow as professionals as well. And I think with the challenging areas that I oversaw within higher education and the issues that arose in dealing with maybe emergency situations, crisis situations, having to work with developing partnerships and sponsorships, it helped me translate into sports as well as I continue to utilize the skills that I gained from those areas and what I'm doing now with the Chili Peppers and Cosmic Baseball.
That's awesome. So at what moment did you realize you wanted to transition out of higher ed and into the sports realm?
So it was about 2016. I realized I was getting a little bored, and I took a short break from Arizona State University, where I was previously employed, and then I went to work at the University of Georgia. And it took me a short time there to realize that I was more than just bored with higher education. I was done with it. I wanted a brand new experience, something that really would challenge me from a creative and entertainment standpoint. And so as I started for looking at a career transition, I started following a lot of social media influencers. And I had wondered, what would it be like to help those influencers grow their careers as a manager? And so I started doing more research there. I ultimately found an entertainment business program at the LA Film School that would help me get some additional experience. And so I started taking courses through the film school, but I also realized, you know what? I need hands-on experience. So I went out to the LA area to do an internship with a talent management company. I stayed on as an associate talent manager, and then COVID hit. And that shut the industry down.
Yep.
And as a talent manager, you're not making money if your talent aren't working. And so at that point, I realized, you know what? Maybe I need to look into something a little bit else, a little bit more stable. And ever since I was a young boy, I wanted to be involved with baseball in some way. And I still had that thought in the back of my head, even as I was working in higher education and working in talent management. I'd always wanted to figure out, how can I get into sports? And so I saw the COVID opportunity as a means to be able to do that. And so I started looking for internships within the sports industry to see who would give me, somebody in his 40s, an opportunity to transition into the sporting industry. And luckily, the Tri-City Chili Peppers offered me that opportunity. And so I moved from California to Virginia to do an assistant general manager internship. So it was a more of an elevated internship and gave me the chance to learn more about how to work in the sports industry, but also how sports teams functions and operates, and also to manage the staff within the sporting industry, as I got a chance to provide leadership to the interns that we had in 2022, my first season with the Chili Peppers. And after that experience, it's been a pretty cool experience to stay on board with the Chili Peppers as a staff member and continue to grow in what is now my third professional staff position with the organization.
That's
That's
incredible.
incredible.
And I was
And I was
actually
actually
at, I don't
at,
know
I
if you
don't know if you
remember this,
remember
it was
this,
a
it
very
was a very
large
large
crowd, but
crowd,
I
but
was
I was
actually
actually
at
at
the
the
Semi
Semi
2025 in
2025 in
Washington,
Washington,
D.C. It's
D.C.
where I
It's where I
originally met
originally met
you.
you.
Mhm.
And you
And you
told that
told that
story
story
about
about
being the
being the
40-year-old
40-year-old
intern
intern
and
and
how it
how it
was,
was,
very
very
different for
different for
you.
you.
And, it's a
It's a
very
very
unique
unique
experience.
experience. So
As your
as your
role
role
from an
from an
intern, and
intern,
then
and
you
then you
ultimately
ultimately
end up
end
at the
up at the
position
position
you're at
you're
as
at as
vice
vice
president,
president,
what
what
ultimately
ultimately
fueled
fueled
that
that
like
like
progressive
progressive
growth
growth
at the
at the
Tri-City
Tri-City
Chili
Chili
Peppers?
Peppers?
For me, I like to one challenge myself as a professional, and if I'm going to go do something, I want to take it as far as I can. And so I would continue to see opportunities to help grow our organization because technically we're still a really young organization. We actually started playing in 2021 and now it's only 2026. So still relatively newer within the industry.
Right.
And so it provided opportunities to figure out, okay, how do we grow the brand of the Chili Peppers beyond our smaller area here in Virginia? How do we get more people to know about who we are and realize this is a great opportunity to be able to come and get some initial experience, which is why I like, you know, recruiting college students from colleges all across the country. Because it's a way for me to one give them experience, but also grow the Chili Peppers brand on a national level. And I also looked at the opportunities of what is coming up. What else could we do to continue to help our organization stand out amongst all the other organizations there are within baseball? And of course, the game changer for us was the development and implementation of Cosmic Baseball starting in 2024.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
it was
actually
actually
that's a
that's a
great
great
transition. I
transition.
wanted
I
to get
wanted to
into
get
that.
into that.
So, where
Where
exactly
exactly
did
did
the
the
creation
creation
of
of
Cosmic
Cosmic
Baseball
Baseball
come
come
about?
about?
I
I
actually went
actually went
to
to
the
the
game in
game in
Worcester. I
Worcester. I
believe it was
believe it
in
was in
July.
July.
Incredible
Incredible
experience. I mean,
experience. I
I
mean,
couldn't
I couldn't
recommend it
recommend
more
it
to
more to
anybody. I
anybody.
told
I
all my
told all my
friends
friends
about it.
about
It
it. It
was
was
probably the
probably the
funnest
funnest
baseball
baseball
game
game
I've been a
I've been a
part of,
part of,
and
and
definitely a
definitely a
life
life
memory that I
memory that I
will,
will,
have with
have
me.
with
But
me.
like
But
I said,
like I
how did
said,
that
how did
come
that come
about?
about?
So in 2023, we actually had a neon theme night here at Shepherd Stadium in Virginia, and we gave away some glow in the dark items. And fans really enjoyed that experience. But our owner had also looked around and wondered how effective and authentic is this to glow in the dark because your stadium lights are still on.
Right.
So he wondered what would it be like if we turned off the stadium lights and played in a glow in the dark or a black light environment. And he had presented this idea to some partners, and he got connected with the national lighting company, and they were very intrigued by the idea. But even they said, you could have hundreds of black lights, and even then, we don't know if it would work. But they did go into research and development mode for about 5 to 6 months and developed a stadium grade UV black light for us. Now,
Wow.
with black lights, there are different levels of technology and safety with black lights. A lot of the ones that consumers may purchase may not be the safest out there because those are the ones that could potentially cause the seizures that some people always reference. Is this going
Right.
to happen? But for ours, they are safe. They are essentially medical grade safe UV black lights. And once we got the first prototype in early 2024, we had started testing out the baseballs and our merchandise to see what reacts, what doesn't. What would it be like at the stadium? How many of these lights would we actually need? And Chris Martin, our owner, and the innovator behind Cosmic Baseball, started having conversations with the vendors who create our fan merchandise, our uniforms, our bats and baseballs, and presented the idea to them and threw down the challenge of, can you create UV reactive items? And so they would send us samples and we would turn on this black light in our office and sort of blind ourselves because it was bright. And we'd hold up the samples to figure out, yes, that color reacts. No, that color doesn't. Or yes, those colors go well together on a UV reactive item, or no, those don't. And as we started making more headway into that area and getting some final products, we showed some of the fans who were in our inner circle to get their feedback. What would fans actually think about this? And they were blown away by the concept and knew that it would be a hit and that fans would absolutely love it. So we added 4 games to our 2024 schedule. And then I would say in April of 2024, we filmed our uniform reveal and then finally posted it on social media in the first week of May of 2024. And at that point, once we did that, it took 24 to 48 hours for it to go viral. And people were commenting on it, forwarding it. News stations were reaching out, wanting to do interviews to learn more about what is cosmic baseball. Because at that point, they only saw the uniforms. They didn't see anybody playing baseball. They just saw uniforms. But they were so intrigued, they wanted to know more. And that helped us sell out the game on June 1st, 2024, our first one. And it was packed. It was so crowded. Fans were so excited. The hype was unbelievable. And then once we finally transitioned into the black lights, it was crazy to see the fans' response to it all. And when fans finally started posting their photos and videos from that night, that helped it really take off. And then on a national level, that night, ESPN did a special segment on SportsCenter. And they made their studio sort of be UV reactive as well, or at least use those colors that we were using. And it was an awesome experience to see what you had just created and come up with actually being on a national sports show. And we came in the next day and phones were ringing off the hook. People were crashing the ticketing website. And the other 3 games that we had scheduled sold out within hours of each other on that same day. And so we knew it would go big at some point. We didn't think it would go big that quickly. Fans started reaching out and saying, "Hey, I didn't get tickets to any of your games. Will you do more?" And so we're like, what do they mean more? How many tickets are they requesting? And so Chris had put up a ticket lottery form on our website, and fans were requesting an additional 20,000 tickets.
Wow.
Now, that is a large number, but when you think of it in comparison to our stadium sells out at about 2,400. So that we knew at that point, okay, we can add more games. So we added 2 more, and that's when minor league teams started reaching out, asking us if we would take this on the.
And so you kind of talked about the research and development of cosmic baseball. Were there some challenges, or like was there some unexpected twists and turns there as far as like there was ideas that you guys wanted to move forward with, but they had to get shopped just because they didn't work like logistics wise, or they weren't safe or anything like that?
Safety was a big issue that we took into consideration as we started doing this right from the beginning. And that was, I'd say, probably the number one concern that fans had asked questions about or posted about, whether or not the players could see a baseball coming at them or be able to hit a baseball. And if the fans could see it, if a foul ball went into the stands. And so we had taken safety in consideration right from the beginning. And so it took a lot of testing about what type of baseball would react best. Okay. Would we have to do something to that baseball to make it truly stand out? And we did have some conversations with a national sports retailer about this, but unfortunately it didn't work quite right with the baseball that they had in mind. And so really quickly, as we got close to the first game, we had to create our own cosmic baseball.
Oh, wow.
And so from 2024, the photos that you see of the baseball and the powder coming off of the ball, that was our own creation. Nobody did that for us. Our staff came up with that and figured out how to do that on our own. And so that's something we're pretty proud of because once we figured out how to make the baseball reactive, our players felt even more comfortable and felt safer in being able to see the ball, to be able to throw the ball, hit the ball, and feel the ball as well. And so we did a lot of testing with them before the very first game. We had started practicing with them. I'd say it's probably late March, early April of 2024. And throughout that month and a half, we were testing everything, had them out there playing in regular conditions at night with the black lights on, and they gave us their feedback. We made adjustments to the lights and how they were positioned in the stadium with the baseball itself, and things went really well at that point. Players weren't injured, fans weren't injured, and it all went well. And we also took a look at the stadium and how we make sure the stadium was reactive, and that way fans could see their way around within the black light.
Right. So kind of stemming back to what you're talking about with the national tour of cosmic baseball, what kind of like logistics issues or working through those like I said, logistics, but what kind of problems arise when you're dealing with a tour that goes to multiple states, multiple cities, but also different staffing, different stadiums, different size venues? What does that look like for you, especially someone in your role?
So in my role, I often am the first one to meet with minor league teams who reach out and have an interest in bringing cosmic baseball to their stadiums. And so one of the first questions they ask me is, how do you make our stadium UV reactive? You know what? That is a very valid and great question. With the lights that we have them on units that we can transport from stadium to stadium. And we can put those units and position them throughout the stadium and then raise the lights up on telescopic poles. And so we can position those lights to hit different parts of the stadium. And then we also take some of those lighting units and hang them from different parts of the stadium so that they can hit some of the parts like back or towards the concourse area that are a little bit darker. So folks back there are part of the experience. And then we also put them on top of the stadium. And while we're up there, we figured, you know what? Let's add a little bit more entertainment up there. And so while we're installing the lights, that's where we also install our bubble machines, our lasers, and our confetti cannons. And so they all go into making other people's stadiums UV reactive and an entertainment hub for cosmic baseball. So that is definitely one of the challenges. In terms of the different sizes of the venue, so we'll adjust the number of lights that we need per venue to make sure it's going to work. We'd rather have more than not enough.
Right.
Because when you don't have not enough, then it tends to be a darker experience and doesn't look as well. So we want to make sure we have as many lights as possible. But with the different sizes, we get to look at how does that impact ticketing. Thankfully, fans responded on a national level. Shall I say maybe more regional level. I like to think of 2025 as a regional tour. And so fans responded and we sold out 2 games at every location. So the different sizes of the stadium from maybe 6,500 up to 12,000 plus didn't matter. We had the response from the fans and they purchased the tickets and wanted to be a part of this experience. And so now here we are in 2026, which I consider our national glow up, if you will. And so now we're going all across the country at this point. And so based on what we learned from 2025, we are confident that the 26 tour, which will feature 30 stops, is going to be just as successful, if not more.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, it sounds like you guys have kind of accounted for everything. You've got it all figured out. And, like I said before, it's an incredible production. I wouldn't recommend it more. It's, something you have to go see if you haven't, definitely. So I now wanted to kind of transition over to the leadership topics, kind of organizational culture. Sports is known for long hours, big expectations, and constant pressure, especially considering the kind of shows that you guys are going with these regional tours. How do you keep your staff grounded and supported and inspired throughout the chaos of a season?
Yes. Yeah. Sports, definitely long days. And that's what you hear often. For us, it's our staff are really involved in the creation of the experience. So it's not so much as Chase, go do this, go do that. It's Chase, how do you think we should do this? How do you think we should do that? And having you be a part of the brainstorming experience and coming up with the ideas of how we can implement a great entertainment experience for the fans and really get them engaged and involved. And so that's one way to keep our staff as a part of the experience and really invested in it, because it's something where they are taking their ideas and bringing them to life. Another one is taking a look at the time we give to staff. We realize that, particularly with putting on a tour and the physical demands of setting up a stadium for every game, that can be a lot on staff. So we have to look at how can we give time back to staff to make sure when they're rested and ready to go and re-energized to be able to put on each of our tour stops. And particularly as we go into 2026, adding more staff members. So we were going to be going from a staff of probably about, let's say 10 to 12 people, now in the 40s. And so we've done all of that since the end of our tour in September. I've been working with our staff to get people interviewed and get them hired. And starting January 5th, Some of our newer staff are starting, and they'll continue coming in throughout January and February and March, and that'll be time to rock and roll and put on the new tour. But we're definitely going to look at how we give time back for all these tour stops, making sure that as people are traveling, they're hopefully getting maybe one tour stop off each month to be able to be at home here in Virginia and rest and relax and get ready to go for traveling again for the next tour stop. So we definitely have to look at that. But also we try and keep it light amongst our staff. We realize this is a lot of work. It can be very stressful. So what can we do to create an environment to where when people feel comfortable giving their ideas, but also realize we're here to support each other and develop bonds with each other as well.
Totally.
And so we try and make sure that we are maintaining that professionalism. And I think really treating our staff with a great amount of care for their well-being and what type of experience that we're giving to them.
Yeah, it sounds like, based on what you said, everybody's very well supported. And so I kind of wanted to stem back to what you're talking about as far as the hiring process. What qualities do you look for when hiring young professionals who want to break into sports? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
Yep. So definitely looking for those who are going to be on board with the long days that we just talked about. Also be willing to be flexible in the areas that they're going to work. Particularly with our operations staff, as they help set up the stadium, it's not just putting up the lights, but also moving our merchandise tents into location and getting some of those areas set up as well. And on game days, they may transition from operations to working with merchandise, or maybe helping with the entertainment piece down on the field, or as a part of the pregame block party that we do as well. So we do need some flexibility to be able to help out in different areas. Also being a team player, doing what needs to get done in order to put on the show, whether it's here in Virginia at our home stadium or as a part of the tour experience. I also look for people who want to learn and try new things. While you're young, it's a great time to try everything out and see, what do you really want to do? What do you really have a passion for? And sometimes you really don't know you have an interest or passion in something until you try it. And so this is where I tell people, if myself in my 40s was willing to go out there and give something a try, you in your 20s, you should be just as willing to do that as well. And that would include moving. I know that can be a little scary, moving to a new area. Also financially, a little scary taking on that risk. But I think while you're young, go for it. Be willing to take those chances, take those risks, and move to new areas, try out new things, and see, what you want to do and where eventually you might want to settle.
I think that's great advice, and I think that, people who are listening, as far as, looking for jobs, I think you hit the nail right on the head. So I wanted to transition now and talk a little bit about Phoenix Rising. So you started Phoenix Rising, a brand centered around wellness, self-identity, and helping people rise again. What inspired you to create that platform?
For me, it was a part of an experience that I was going through. Here I was in my mid 40s or early to mid 40s, realizing, I didn't like my life. I wanted to change. I wanted to do something that made me happy. And so I sort of felt like at the end of my higher education experience, I was a phoenix that was dying, and it was time to be reborn again from the ashes. And so I felt like a phoenix rising at that point, being reborn into something else, be willing to try new things, get a new identity, figure out what were the new things that I wanted to do in life, and going for it. And that's what I like to recommend to people, is that you should be happy with what you do in life. And if something isn't making you happy, why are you sticking with it? I know it's scary to change. I know it's scary to take on new challenges. There are lots of risks with it, but aren't you willing to take that risk to be happy in your life with what you're doing? And that's something I've always tell people to do, go out and take that risk. When I moved out to California to do my talent management internship, I moved out there. I finally had a place to stay a week before I was supposed to move, but other than the internship, which was unpaid, I didn't have a paid job. I just went for it. And so to move out to the LA area without a paid job, that's scary. And that can eat you up alive.
Sure.
But I was like, you know what? This is an exciting time for me to reinvent myself, try something new in my career. And this opportunity, it may never have been presented to me if I waited any longer. So I was like, you know what? I'm going for it. I'm going to do this. Regardless of what happens, I'm going to give this a try. And I did. And, I started my internship. And after a few weeks out there, found my paid job. And so I was working full time with Amazon in one of their warehouses late at night from, I think it was about, was it until probably about 9 or 10 the next morning, maybe even
Wow, that's
11.
a brutal shift.
And then after that, I would come home, get ready, and I'd go to my internship as a talent manager. And then I was also in school full time with the LA Film School. And so I'd make sure to do my classes, do my homework, and then I'd maybe get a couple of nights, hours of sleep, and I'd do it all over again. And I was like, wow, if I can do this, here at my age, why can't somebody who's a little bit younger, maybe has a little bit more energy in life, be able to do this as well? And so I was like, if I can do this, you can do this.
I
I
think
think
that's
that's
great
great
advice.
advice.
And
And
so,
so,
kind of
kind of
stemming
stemming
off
off
of,
of,
the
the
mental
mental
health
health
and
and
well-being
well-being
topic,
topic,
with your
with your
focus
focus
on
on
wellness and
wellness and
personal
personal
development,
development,
how do
how
you
do you
approach
approach
preventing
preventing
burnout
burnout
for
for
yourself
yourself
and
and
also for
also
your
for your
staff?
staff?
I think that starts with, again, doing something that I'm happy with. Um, Granted, you're going to have long days, even when you're doing something you really enjoy, something that's
Right.
you're passionate about. But it makes it more worth it because of that happiness that you get from what you're doing. But I also realize, I admit, as an introvert, I get tired of people at times. I need my break from people. And so I take my time. When I realize it's time for me to go and have my Rob time, my alone time, I go and I take it, where I'm away from people, get a chance to recharge my batteries, relax a little. Um, I, I do what I can to go to the gym, try and stay in better shape. Which gets more challenging as you get older. So if you're younger, please continue to stay in shape, be healthy, take care of your body as well. But those are some of the things that I enjoy, as well as trying to teach myself some new things about graphic design. So I think that I like to have a creative outlet, so I can use that part of my brain and my personality when I have the opportunity. It's very, I think, therapeutic for me to be able to do something like that. And so I would suggest for others out there, find something that's also therapeutic for yourself, something that you get to dabble in as a hobby that gets you away from the work that you normally do. So you get a chance to exercise different parts of your mind and your body and do something a little bit different.
I think that's great advice. And I totally agree, especially coming from a graphic design background. I think it is extremely therapeutic. You just kind of sit there and do your thing. It's very artistic like. Um, but I did want to also kind of talk about the future of sports operations as far as when it comes to the Tri-City Chili Peppers. So
So,
what do
what
you
do you
think the
think the
next
next
evolution
evolution
of
of
summer
summer
collegiate
collegiate
baseball
baseball
looks
looks
like,
like,
and
and
how are
how
the
are the
Chili
Chili
Peppers
Peppers
positioning
positioning
themselves
themselves
for
for
that
that
future?
future?
Well, I think there's still going to be a great focus on the entertainment and fan experience. And that's something within the Coastal Plain League. I hear a lot of our teams talking about how they can change up the entertainment experience and really make it more engaging for the fans and try new things out. And so I think more sports will be going towards something like that, taking the tradition of a certain sport or sports and trying to figure out, how do you change it up? How do you make it a little bit different to where it stands out a little bit more for fans nowadays? And that's something that we will continue to do with Tri-City Chili Peppers and Cosmic Baseball. We definitely have our thoughts on where we're taking the Cosmic experience and what's next. And so we're looking forward to trying to create brand new things for the fans that they haven't experienced before.
And, like many other people, I am extremely excited to see what's coming next for the 2026 season. Um,
Um,
I
I
did
did
want to
want to
talk
talk
about
about
AI.
AI.
Mhm.
So,
So,
how
how
exactly are
exactly
you
are you
guys
guys
implementing
implementing
AI? Are
AI?
you
Are you
using it
using
in
it in
your
your
role
role
day
day
to
to
day?
day?
What
What
does
does
AI
AI
look
look
like
like
for the
for the
Tri
Tri
City
City
Chili
Chili
Peppers
Peppers
and
and
how it's
how it's
being
being
used?
used?
So at this point, AI has been used a little bit for creating scripts for staff for when they're calling people for potential tickets, but also creating some training experiences and presentations. And I've used AI presentations for some of the high schools that I go to talk about sports management, sports marketing, and I found AI does a wonderful job with those presentations and puts it sometimes more eloquently than I ever could. And so I like to utilize it that way. But we also look at how does AI help us when we take a look at mapping of our tours, distances between cities, where our fans are coming from, what type of engagement that we're getting. And so we can continue to look at AI and how it creates the marketing pieces as well, not necessarily for us, maybe, but maybe for other organizations, especially if maybe you're in a little bit of a rut and you need some help, or you're not necessarily the most gifted graphic designer or artist out there. What can AI do to help you create something that'll suffice for your brand, for where it is at that point, until maybe you get a little bit more up and going and develop some more skills of your own as well. But it's definitely there as a tool for people to be able to utilize. And I know at CME, there was a great deal of talk about AI and how it was going to impact the sports experience. And so it is going to be interesting to continue to watch AI and see how it further develops. I know that as we sit there and scroll through our social media, particularly our TikToks, we're seeing all those AI related videos and trying to figure out what's real, what's not. Are these cats riding on this sleigh singing a Taylor Swift song? Is that real or not? So they are definitely out there, and so trying to figure out how you can use that for the better. But also think, don't forget to develop your own skills and utilize your own skill set so that you are a more formidable candidate as you continue to do a search for a job.
I think that's incredible advice. And one of the last things I wanted to touch on is your advice to young professionals. So what's the best career advice that you give to people who want to break into sports but aren't sure where to start?
One, you could start with networking. And so I know there are different organizations that do offer networking opportunities. I particularly have been really fond of Teamwork Online and utilizing their networking events. I think that's a great opportunity. And so anytime I go out to the intern fairs, one of the main questions I always ask is, do you have an account with Teamwork Online? If they say no, it's like, why not? You need to develop it. So I'll walk them through the steps about how to set up their account and point out the events that Teamwork does. It's a great opportunity to go and meet other professionals, organizations that are recruiting for positions, to learn more from them about what it takes to be successful as a sports management professional. And also see how could you fit in with their organization as an intern or a professional staff member. So definitely network all that you can. If you can't make it to one of those events, you can easily reach out on LinkedIn, where that's how Chase reached out to me to set this up. Definitely, utilize LinkedIn as a great professional service to grow your professional network. Reach out to individuals, set up meetings, let them know, hey, I just want to learn more about you. And here's some things I want to talk about. Would you be interested in meeting with me? Myself, I love giving back, particularly to college students, to help them think about their careers and how they're going to continue to grow as professionals. And so you can set up those meetings and do something simple as having a Zoom network meeting with them as well, to learn more. And by doing that, you are getting your name out there and growing your network contact list as well. So I would definitely look at the networking piece. Also, look at the positions that are posted out there. Figure out, where would you like to be within a certain number of years? Okay, so you want to be a GM. Okay, great. What experiences do you need as a GM? Take a look at the position and responsibilities and see what it is that they're looking for, and also what are they looking for qualifications. Okay, what positions would it take to eventually get to that GM role? And then go find those positions. Okay, it looks like ticketing, sales, I'm going to need that experience. Okay, what are the responsibilities and qualifications that they're looking for? Okay, what's the next level down of where maybe I could start to start getting some of those experiences so I can build up my resume and build up my skill set so I can eventually get to that level of being a GM. So sometimes you have to start at the top and work your way backwards to figure out where you need to start at. And you can take a look at those positions and say, okay, I have the responsibilities in my experiences, and I have these qualifications that they're looking for. And so I'm at this level. Or you know what? I don't. I need to go one level down and start building up from there. Okay. So that's one way you can grow, I think, your background within sports and get more experiences so that by the time you're ready to go for that top position that you want, you are there and you are a candidate that they really can't refuse because of all the experiences that you've gotten. And I also say, for when I go out to these intern fairs, I always ask them, have you done an internship yet? And if they're a senior and they say no, I ask them, what have you been doing?
Right.
I always like to tell students every summer you should be doing an internship during the school year. Get something go do a practicum. You know, even if you're not going to get credit for it, go get that experience. Get as much as you can as an undergrad so that by time you graduate, you're looking more like a seasoned professional than a newbie, because entry-level positions are no longer entry-level. You need to have experience already. So do as much as you can from the time you get into school until you graduate.
I think that's great advice. And, personally, I did all those things. I had 4 internships throughout college. I attended all these Teamwork Online events. I'm actually going to Long Island this Friday for the New York Conference, or the New York Sports Career. I can't remember the exact title, but great resource, especially considering if you're trying to work in sports. So yeah, I mean, that's really it as far as questions that I have on my end. I did want to kind of throw it to you. Do you have anything you kind of want to leave off with, or we're kind of, we're all set?
Okay. Well, Chase, for yourself, when somebody watches this, what are you hoping that they take away from this experience?
Yeah, so I'm a career development GA here at Sacred Heart, and I ultimately want to work in sports. This is kind of just a pit stop for me, but my ultimate goal out of this podcast is for someone else to see this who might not be sure. Because for me, I know what I want to do. I know where I want to go. I know how I want to get there. It's more of a matter of how I'm going to get there. For a lot of people out there, they're not too sure on how they want to get there, what they want to do, all the things that come along the way. And so that's why I started this podcast, is to kind of talk about the challenges, whether it's like we talk about burnout, and that's something I've experienced myself working endless days and hours, but or transitioning out of different roles. That's a very common thing that I think a lot of people can relate to. So ultimately, I think the goal of this podcast is really just to show people that it's possible, from a perspective like yours, starting to intern at 40 years old, and now look, you're the vice president of the Tri-City Chili Peppers. That's quite an accomplishment. So really, I think it's all about perspective and showing people different perspectives and showing them different stories. And that's why it's called Sideline Stories.
Absolutely. We all have stories to tell. And I know one of the posts that I created for Phoenix Rising on its social media account was, what is your origin story? Where does it all begin for you, and how are you going to grow from there? Okay. And that's something we all have to figure out, because we all have a story to tell, and that can help us continue to, I think, grow as professionals and figuring out where do we also see our story going and how do we want it to end. And so you can also use that story like you are now to help others continue to figure out where is it that they're going to go and how are they going to grow as professionals and as people as well.
Absolutely. Well, Robert, I wanted to say thank you so much for your time. This is going to be the last episode of season 1 of Sideline Stories. So we will see you in 2026. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you for having me, Chase. I appreciate it. Happy holidays, everybody.